This is a special podcast presentation from 700WLW.com. This is Doc Thompson On Demand.
I'm thinking about resigning. Something I've been struggling with the last couple of days. I got some information that made me start questioning whether or not I belong here at 700 WLW. It was information that was mailed to me. I got it over the weekend. I started looking through the information, and I started thinking, is 700 WLW really the right spot for me? The information I got was the salary listings for Butler and Warren County public government employees. Salary listings for just Butler and Warren County government workers. And I started questioning as I went through how much they make, whether or not 700 WLW is really the right spot for me. That maybe I am being foolish. If you can't beat them, join them. Maybe I should join the people on the pro, get rid of SB 5, the let's go ahead and throw more money at teachers and government workers, people who support that. Maybe I've been taking the wrong path. Maybe I just need to go become a government worker. So I started questioning, maybe I should just move on. Join those people who are making huge salaries. These salaries were sent to me. They were published in a paper. And it just goes county and city. Butler and Warren County, and then the cities within those counties. Maybe I'm the fool. Maybe I should be over there with them. You can't beat them, join them. Why am I fighting so hard to do the right thing? Maybe I should just go over there and... Well, and it's not just Butler and Warren counties, it's just the figures I have right here. It's all government. I'm not talking about the guy who works at the low end and makes $20,000 a year. The people doing part-time. I'm not talking about the people making $30,000, $40,000 a year, eking out a salary. I'm not talking about the people that are working for jails and prisons as babysitters in horrible conditions with the scum of society. I'm not talking about you. I'm talking about the people making big money. Oh, when people want to spin, they want to spin out there. People aren't making that much, Doc. You don't understand. Well, I have the figures right here. The salary listings, this is not total compensation. This is just salaries for Warren and Butler counties and the cities therein. It is 6 pages of people listed. 6 pages, about 500 or so per page. Roughly 3,000 people listed in just Butler and Warren counties and the cities therein that work for government, and everybody on here is making over $65,000 a year. Now, that $65,000 is not a whole lot of money. But I'm just pointing out that is the low end listed here, so to show that I'm not talking about the person that's making $32,000 a year. The average salary in the private sector, the average American makes around $40,000 a year. It's low 40s. Everybody on here makes over $20,000 a year more. But that's just the low end on this list. Butler County has 16 people making over $100,000 a year. A couple of them over $120,000 a year. Several of them $117,000. In fact, there's only 3 of them that make over $100,000 that are between $100,000 and $106,000. 16. Butler County has 23 people making $90,000 or more a year. They have 43 people making $80,000 or more a year. 76 people in Butler County that work for the county employees, make over $70,000 a year, while the average American is making about $40,000. Now, through this whole debate on SB 5 and government workers and what they make, and everyone wants to talk about the poor guys, the people who are making $20,000, and I've said, listen, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the upper end. Well, guess what? There are 218 people in Butler County alone that make at least $20,000 a year more than the average American. 218 in the county alone that make at least $20,000 a year more. 76 of them make $70,000 a year, so that's $30,000 a year more. 43, $80,000, so that's $40,000 a year more. So those 16 people in Butler County that make over $100K, the 23 that make over $90K, any of them talking about shared sacrifice? That's just Butler County. The city of Fairfield, 16 people over $100,000 a year, 14,000 between 90 and 100,000, 33 in the $80,000 to 89,000, and then another 100 making between 65 and 79. The city of Franklin has a person making 107,000, a couple of people, what is that, 4 making 80,000, about 10 making 70,000. The city of Hamilton, 42 people make over $100,000 a year in the city of Hamilton. Over $100,000 a year, with many of them encroaching or actually over by $100,000 what the average American makes. Top couple of people in the city of Hamilton make $152,000 a year. That is $110,000 a year more than the average worker. Many of them in the hundred and teens. City of Lebanon, $118,000 a year is what the city manager makes. You got about 10 people making in the 80s, a couple of them making in the 90s. The city of Mason, 7 people making over $100,000 a year. Middletown, let's see here. You got 4 people making over $100,000 a year. City of Monroe, 1 person making over $100,000 a year, 4 of them in the 80s. City of Oxford, 2 people making over $100,000 a year. You got about 15 or so making 80 to 99,000. City of Springboro, 1 person making over $100,000 a year. All of these people, thousands of them, working for the government in just Butler County, Warren County, or the cities therein, making over $65,000 a year, and more than half of them making over $80,000 a year. Why am I still working in the private sector? Edgewood schools, $100,000. You got 1 person, handful of them over $80,000. Fairfield schools, 4 people making $99,000, 5 making $99,000 a year or over. Franklin schools, 2 people making over $100,000 a year. Hamilton school, city schools, you've got 6 people in Hamilton city schools that make over $100,000 a year. On and on and on. So why am I beating myself up? Can't beat them, join them. Where are those government jobs? I wonder if the people that make this money, that want to cry poor, the teachers, the administrators, that say it's just more money for education, we need to send more money on those things, realize that if enough people said what I just said, hey, why am I playing the fool? I'm going to go get a government job, that the whole thing would come crashing down? I guess not. They apparently don't know that, or they're just happy to go ahead and make it. And the other problem is, then the people who double dip, the people, and this happens at a lot of schools, I know somebody who does this, they retire. They get their pension, they get that money coming in, then they're hired to do the same job. How is that acceptable? How have we not marched down to our school boards and our cities and counties and said, this is unacceptable? Get some calls here. Jacob in Lebanon, you're on 700 WLW.
Good morning. You
How
bring
you
up some excellent points. Let me clarify a few things and talk about a few things. You know, the administrators and the people who serve at leisure of these counties and cities, there's no unions backing them. That is those elected officials, our county commissioners, our city council members giving these salaries out. Take Butler County. All those high salaries, most of those high salaries are in the Department of Environmental Services. And where the county commissioner says, well, that's not tax money, but what they do, they raise our utility rates, our water rates, and those jobs are all politically appointed by the commissioners. So they hire cousin Johnny, they hire Aunt Betsy's sister, and so they have that going on. So they've got a lot of that high salary is through that.
Well, let me clarify, and then I'll let you finish, Jacob. You're absolutely right. This is the reason I talk about being consistent. This is the reason I am consistent. You're Willie with Bill Seitz. He gets him on here, and Bill tries to walk this tightrope of being a friend of the union so he can get reelected and all this garbage. I'm the one that's being consistent. I have called out the administrators and the school boards and everybody that is making these big salaries. You are right. The highest paid.
Bill 5 doesn't affect those people.
Well, wait a minute. Hang on, Jacob. Hang on. You are right. The highest paid people here, most of them are not the union. However, there are plenty of people on the list that are the next tier down, making the 80s and 90s, that are union members. So it's both, and that's what I don't hear. I don't hear, Jacob, the consistency where we say, you know what, yes, it would be nice. $70,000 a year when you're trying to raise a family is not a great deal of money. But when you realize most Americans make $40,000 a year on average, guess what? You're making great money.
Let me ask you something, though. Of that percentage of those people make $20,000 a year, how much percentage of them are of the workforce? The biggest problem we have a great non-working workforce that brings down the family income level averages.
No, you're absolutely right, and that's the reason I said, listen, if you're making $20,000 a year, working a job as a government employee, you are not making a lot of money, and that's actually pretty shameful, especially the ones who have to work, with the inmates.
Now, let me clarify. Those people not working, that's voluntarily not working. They're on public assistance and all that. Now,
which people are that?
I'm talking about, you talking about the family income.
Oh, yeah, okay.
They're clearing people on that list who are getting government stipends and who are avoiding working. So what you need to do, you need to weed those people off those statistics first, then look at the true median income of the average family. Because that is skewing.
Well, no, wait a minute. That when you say what is the average person making, that's not talking about the people on public assistance.
You better check that.
No. That is the average salary. The average American. And I'm not talking about a family. Yeah, families make more than that, Jacob. Families will often have two incomes where, a husband makes 30, 40, 50, whatever, and the wife does as well. Between the two of them, maybe they're making 70, 80, maybe even $120,000 a year. But the average income in America for people who work is around low 40s. You'll see it go up by a couple of thousand here and there, but that's the average. How about the consistency? You union members, this is the reason I want SB 5, because I want the local control. I don't want the collective bargaining. I want you to make what you can make. But when I see people making $80,000, $90,000 a year that are the union members, when I see that and know that there are people working in the correctional facilities that are making $30,000 a year and getting urine and feces thrown at them, there's something wrong with that. But I will say this to you, union members. Here's the consistency. The supervisors, the administrators, the environmental studies the guy mentioned, they shouldn't be making $125,000, $150,000 a year. That's disgraceful. And it's disingenuous for them to come to you and say, well, we need to cut your salaries. No, cut yours as well. This is why I say we are all in this together. And I am willing to take the haircut as well. I am willing to pay more. My only stipulation is I will fight against each and every increase in taxes until they truly solve this problem. They're working in Capitol Hill right now, trying to figure out where to cut, and we're still not talking about the structure that has created all of this. We are broken, and it's not just because of these outrageous salaries. The system is broken. So while SB 5 has some issues, there's some troubling things in it, some things I didn't like. I want to see more local control. I want to see people involved more. And I want to see people pay based on merit. When you end up in a small city with 10 or 15 people making over $100,000 a year, the train has come off the tracks. More of your calls coming up on 700 WLW. Fox 19 Storm Tracker forecast for meteorologist Frank Marzullo. It's not too bad today. Sun and cloud mix, high around 65. Partly cloudy skies tonight, overnight low 46. Right now at the big one, it's 47. I'm glad that guy called and mentioned that the top people on the list are not union members. He's right. We got to go after them, too. We got to go after them and say you're being unreasonable if you're getting paid $160,000 a year in your capacity as a government employee. You want to make more than that? Then go run Shell or something. Go work in the private sector. But there are many teachers on this list who are making $70,000, $80,000, $90,000 a year. Here's a second grade teacher making almost I'm just randomly. This is 6 pages with very small type. You're talking over 3,000 names here. And I just randomly looked for ones who it says their occupation, their position is teacher. A second grade teacher making almost $90,000 a year. For a second grade teacher? Come on. And I can't count every one of these. It would take too long. I mean, these are very small. It's like the stock quotes. That's what the page looks like, because it's in a local paper. I'm doing a rough count of over 3,000 names. The lowest, $65,000 on the list. The highest go as high as 150-some thousand. No, there's one. City of Fairfield, 182,000. So there's plenty of them in the upper end. But let's use a median figure for the salaries off the top of my head. Let's say 82,000. There's more names in the 60s, 70s, and 80,000 than there are at the top, but those ones are also more money. So let's do an average, say 82,000, and roughly 3,000. 3,000 times $82,000 a year. Remember, this is yearly. For just Butler, Warren County, and the cities therein, the public government workers that make over $65,000 a year. We spend $2,460 million. Warren and Butler counties and the cities and schools therein. Just the ones that were listed. I don't know if they left any other school districts or anybody off the list. Just the ones listed at an average salary of this list of $82,000, not including other benefits, not including the double dippers, pensions, perks, cars. Just the salary, yearly, $2,460 million a year. You wonder why we don't have money? Why we're in trouble? Why our budgets are outrageous? That's part of the problem. It's not the only problem, but that's part of it. All right, I've got a whole lot of people that want to comment. I'm going to get to them next. 513-749-7800, the big one. It's Doc Thompson, 700 WLW. 700 WLW and the Tri-State Chevy dealers want you to capture the cruise. For details on how you can win a 2011 Chevy Cruze, check out 700WLW.com to register. It's Capture the Cruise from the Tri-State Chevy dealers and 700WLW.com. Boy, wouldn't that be great to win a car? I always thought that would be tremendous. Here's a new car. That's a sweet deal. Well, you wouldn't have to do that if you're the mayor of Cincinnati. Yeah, Mark Mallory doesn't have to win a car because he gets one. He gets a $500 monthly car allowance. $500 monthly car? What's your car cost? What's your car payment? Is it $500 a month? Probably not. I've never come anywhere near $500 for a car payment a month. But nevertheless, that's what he gets. Another example of people who work for government, no, we're not talking union members here, all government workers, getting some things that I consider excessive. He drives a Lincoln Town car. That's on top of his $121,000 a year salary. But there are some people crying foul over the $500 a month car allowance, including Coast. The lawyer Chris Binney, who founded the Citizens Opposed to Additional Spending and Taxes, good man, he's going after the mayor for this because he says there is no provision in the city charter that allows for this. See, the city charter says the mayor's salary is going to be twice what a council member makes. And right now, a council member makes $60,646 for a part-time job. Almost $61,000. So the mayor's twice that, $121,000. But it doesn't allow for him to get a car allowance or some of the other perks. It's taken out of the city's general fund, which you might recall has a deficit of $54.7 million. Let's get some phone calls now. Let's go to Tom Loveland. You're on 700 WLW.
Hey, Doc. How are you?
I'm doing fine, sir.
All right. I understand you're hitting the salaries, but one thing that you need to hit is the benefits they're paying. I'll be more than welcome, to debate anybody on this or come on your show. But the deal is this. All the schools, all the cities, all the counties in this area are overspending on something as simple as health insurance, about $200 million per year more they're giving away because of the relationships with the insurance agents and brokers and the consortiums they think are the right thing to do. Loveland alone is $1 million a year. Loveland went to the extreme of getting an opinion letter on my solution, and they literally agreed that it was legal and perfectly fine to do, yet they wouldn't implement it, and they're asking the taxpayers up here to pay more on a levy. I've challenged the superintendent to debates. I haven't gotten any return calls. You got Covington down there, $3 million a year. The city manager is trying to block me coming in and showing the committees how to do it. Hamilton County's $30 million a year. And this is just health insurance and dental insurance. This is unbelievable. It is an absolute joke. You have the school districts. I have Bethel and Batavia's towns doing it, but their school districts won't do it. It's only about $1.5 million they're overspending combined there. You have the Butler and Clinton and all these other counties who are forget the salaries. They can keep their salaries if they do something as simple as restructuring their benefits.
Well, the reason, Tom, I bring up the salaries, first of all, because they're listed, and when you see the whole thing's laid out like that, thousands of people making that much more than the average American, it brings it home. Part of the problem with this discussion, and we've talked about SB 5 and everything else, is the pitting people against each other. Listen, I'm not against you union members. I want you to make a good living. I want everybody to. And have it be based on your merit. Where it gets muddy is when we talk about pensions and stuff. Because every city, township, county, state, school district, they all have these different rules, different salaries, different pensions all across the country. So when we talk about this, it gets real muddy. Then some people also have, they get an allowance for their uniform, or the mayor gets a car, all of these things. It gets real muddy. You're right. That is the bigger problem. We are on an unsustainable path when it comes to retirement plans. That's the thing that is killing all of us in America. Everybody is the retirement plans. I went down the salaries because it's a very simple thing to lay out and says, look at what they're making. Look at what you're making. There's a huge discrepancy. It's not all union members. A lot of them aren't. We've got to look at everybody. We've got to fix the system from the ground up. We can't just continue to Band-Aid. We can't say just SB 5 is the way to do it. We can't say, okay, we're going to cut the salaries of those people at the top. From the ground up, restructure. I'm talking the way we pay taxes, our spending, what we spend on employees, entitlements, everything. We need some smart people to sit down and say, we got to rethink this entire thing. because there's a lot of people who've just been going to get the money. Dave and Mason, you're on 700 WLW.
Yeah, she's talking about that one guy was talking about keeping it all in the family, and you're talking about it's not all unions, but it's just like the alcohol and tobacco. You're able to send your kids to college, and if you was a union member and you had your family in there, you're able to send your kids to college because you can afford it. You got the best wages, the best health care. It's like if you're a landowner, your grandparents die, you're able to send your kids to school and college.
Okay, I'm not sure your point.
Well, it's like you said. If you let some people get ahead and double dip and stuff like that, of course they make more money, and they're able to send their kids to college and stuff like that because they can afford it.
Well, I have no people going out and making extra money. In fact, I defended the police officers who work extra time. Good for them. Go out and do it. But the fact that the city would say one day you're doing a job, you're going to retire, and we'll rehire you the next day. You're paying, so the next day you're making double. There's a flaw in that system. I'm not sure what the answer is, but there's definitely a flaw. Kay in Milford, you're on 700 WLW.
Hey, Doc, forgive me. I might be a little bit nervous.
No.
I'm a big fan of your show.
I appreciate that.
My husband is a union member, so let me tell you, there's been some really difficult conversations in this house over the last couple of months. But I really feel like you're misrepresenting a little bit. When you read the list of salaries, you're not getting the whole picture. I think my husband is probably on your list for Warren County.
He's one of those people, is he?
Oh, he's evil, yes. Base salary is in the 60s, and he's a fireman. But he has been able to pick up overtime because they're so understaffed that I'm pretty sure he finished out at over 100 last year. Now, is that his fault that the city won't hire enough people? I mean, sometimes he picks up the overtime to benefit our family, but sometimes he's mandated. Mandated meaning they call him on his off day and they say, hey, you have to come in and work a 24-hour shift.
Sure.
So, I mean, at the end of the year, you look at your paycheck and you're like, wow.
Well, now keep in mind, these are base salaries, and I wasn't going after overtime. I don't have a problem with people making overtime. If you're making $40,000 a year as a base salary or whatever it is, and you make double that overtime, that's not your fault. You're actually being a go-getter. So I'm not going after him for that. Now, maybe the city needs to look at it and say, okay, hire more people. That's almost a separate argument.
We were discussing that last night. What does it cost to hire one fireman? You got the salary, you got the benefits that you keep talking about. It's going to be plus $1 million.
You're right. It's going to be even more.
Right, but there's a revolving door of part-time people that they're doing right now. They have constant classes where they're hiring part-timers to fill these gaps. How much does it cost to have these classes? How much money are they throwing away when these part-timers don't stick around and become full-timers? Do you see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so, I completely understand, Kay. You're right. So there's not an easy solution to that. But I'll tell you what, if we look at the salaries in general and then we go after some of the other benefits, then maybe the discussion about how we handle overtime and stuff like that isn't as significant. It's not going to be as a big deal. But I really appreciate it. And Kay, I hope you and your husband, as you discuss this and some of your family members and friends, understand this is not about attacking one group. This is about everybody. This is about everybody saying we are all in this together and not putting up with the divide and conquer mentality of people like Bill Seitz, because that's how I see it with him. He is the guy who's trying to walk that line because he gets reelected then. I don't think he's being honest. I don't think he's being open, and I don't think he's being a straight shooter on this stuff. It's all about getting reelected. No, and the reason I bring him up is because I'm tired of hearing him. I'm tired of hearing about the stuff where he tries to thread the needle just so he can get reelected. How about some honesty and openness? It's Doc Thompson at 700 WLW. Seeing inflation starting to creep up. Coming up at 11:06, we're going to find out what inflation is doing to your house, the value of your house in the housing industry. 11:06 right now, this morning, with Doc Thompson at 700 WLW. A couple of emails I want to share with you. First of all, from Andrew. He said, as far as Mark Mallory's car goes, I've seen him in his town car. He was in the back seat when I saw him. He has a driver, which I'm sure is paid by a separate stipend. Really? The mayor needs a driver and you need a town car? You can't drive yourself around? Self-important. That's what it comes down to. I'm the mayor, so I get to be self-important. I know at times you need security. I get that, but not all the time. That's just ego. And I think about stuff like that. Think about the mayor getting 121. Listen, you want to pay me $120,000 to do one job like the mayor? To do that, I'll pay for my own car. How about that? I'll take care of it myself. I'm not going to come at you for that. I think of stuff like that. $120,000 a year plus $5,000 a year for a car. When I get emails like this from Matthew. Doc, I'm a welder in a factory in Butler County, and I'm looking at being laid off. When I hear the stories about people being laid off like that, and then you hear the stories about Mark Mallory and many others, something's wrong. Those middle-class workers, those people who are losing their jobs, some of them are union workers. Some of them are government workers. Some of them are not. But the bottom line is there's a lot of people hurting and there's a lot of people that are losing their jobs. Let's go to Don on a cell phone. You're on 700 WLW.
Morning, Doc. How we doing today?
How you doing, sir?
Yeah, real good. Hey, look, just a minor bone of contention.
Sure.
Would you agree that there are some people who do jobs that are worth more than others?
Sure.
Okay. Now, in the example you just used with the great teacher, would you believe that as a non-union truck driver, all right, my gross last year was a little over $70,000. And I'll grant you I work a whole lot more than a 40-hour week to do it. Mm-hmm. Usually I average about 50, 55 hours a week. But that's my choice.
Sure.
I knew what the job was when I took it. All right. I would suggest that for $95,000 a year, a second-grade teacher is not a bad investment because the kids that she's teaching for $95,000 a year are going to be paying our Social Security 30 years from now.
Well, you're assuming, though, you're making one assumption. I see where you're going, and you're right. There are people that are more valuable and should get paid more. But you're assuming that $90,000 a year teacher is worth $90,000 a year. And that's where SB 5 comes in. Being paid on merit. It's Doc Thompson, 700 WLW. There's an analysis out through the state of Ohio that says with SB 5 eliminating collective bargaining, it could save the state about $191 million each year, and local school districts, townships, local governments, they could see more than $1 billion in savings annually. Yeah, those are big numbers, and if you're somebody who doesn't work in one of those capacities, you're saying to yourself, wow, let's save the money. Keep in mind, where's that money being saved? Well, generally speaking, if you're saving it because of collective bargaining, it's coming from those people who were collective bargaining. I mean, I'm somebody who says, listen, I don't have a problem if your salary goes up, if you're doing the work, if you're doing the job, and it's based on what you are really bringing to the table as a worker. And certainly those numbers are attractive. $191 million each year, the state, $1 billion at all the local governments combined. That's attractive when you're trying to balance these budgets. But let's remember where it would be coming from. Let's attack some of those ones at the top first. Gordon Gee, you know who he is? He's the president of Ohio State University. I'm sorry, he's the president of The Ohio State University. According to a trade journal, he is the highest paid public college president in the country. When you look at his total compensation, including his house, car allowance, and bonuses, his total employment, $1.8 million. And who's paying that? You and I pay that. Is Gordon Gee at The Ohio State University worth $1.8 million? Something is out of whack there. When a college president makes that amount of money, house, car, is he that valuable? Or would you rather see him make, I don't know, maybe $150,000 a year, and the rest of that go back to the taxpayers, or, in the cases where we need them, firefighters and police officers and teachers and other government positions that are truly needed? $1.8 million? You take that average, I said, about $40,000 a year, most Americans. Let's go ahead and say $50,000 a year. You shave off just $1 million. That's 20 employees. 20 employees that you could spread out across the state And he would still be making $800,000 a year. What is the justification for paying him that amount of money? What is the justification? He's worth it? He's going to go somewhere else? You couldn't get somebody else to do at least as good a job as him, and maybe he's doing a great job, but at least as good as him for half the money? I find that hard to believe. It's Doc Thompson at the home of the Reds, 700 WL.